as quilters, there's a lot we need to think about when we're making a quilt. But there's also a lot to think about after we make the quilt. What about all that fabric? What about those pieces? What about the extra bits? What do we do with all that? And some of us go to great lengths to save them and store them and size them and really create a usable system out of their scraps. And that's not so much me. I sort of keep a big bin full of it, and when I'm ready, I dig in and go. There are some standard sizes that I use, and I try to keep a lot of my fat quarters on the larger side until I'm ready to cut them down for whatever. And I always have a lot of 5-inch squares on hand because they're such fun to use. And I have a quilt that is perfect for all your scrap fabrics, no matter what size you have, what size you want to use. This quilt is perfect. It is a super simple scrappy quilt, and I'm anxious to show it to you. I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and this is a very simple patchwork quilt. It goes together easily, and while I did mine in 5-inch blocks, you can use any size square that you want and size it in any manner that you want. It's just the idea, the concept about how to mix the fabrics, put them together, get a beautiful quilt top with all those multitude of colors and prints all combined together. So I want to show you some tips that I use and how I make my quilts, and we're going to have some fun making a really beautiful scrappy quilt. So let's go ahead and get started, but first I do hope you subscribe if you haven't already, and I would love if you'd give me a thumbs up. That would be awesome. So let's go ahead. I'm ready to get quilting right now. Given that we're just a week away from summer, I thought it would be a great time to do some spring cleaning. And a lot of that had to do with my sewing room and in particular my fabric. So I've gotten a lot of things organized, but I found out I have a lot of 5-inch squares I need to work with. And so this is my 5-inch square bundle, so to speak. And what I did is found my, little Dollar Tree basket, and I sorted these in. And so what I've done is use these little cardboard pieces just to put in here to keep the fabrics upright. So when I come in, I can just grab what I want. Now what I did is I have the fabric in here. I didn't say it's organized, but at least it's in one place. This will be for the next project. But what I did was take my 5-inch squares, and I want to create a quilt that is colorful, lots of different prints and designs, but I want it to be a scrappy quilt with lots and lots of different fabrics. Now, what I find when you do that is it can look a bit chaotic, and if you've watched me in the past, I like adding a little bit of background or some sort of a fabric that is a neutral in order to tone things down a bit. And in this case, I used low volume fabrics. That's sort of my go-to. But you can use anything. The idea is, let's say you have a charm pack that you're going to purchase, or you have a bundle of fat quarters that you want to cut into 5-inch squares, and you have a lot of different fabrics. Well, basically what you're going to do is put them into 3 piles. Your darkest, your medium, and your light. Your light becomes your background. The medium and the dark are going to mix in between or within the block with the low volume of your background in between. So you get places where you sort of have a pause. It's like that really long sentence that goes on and on and on, and you need a comma or a conjunction or whatever all those things are that we need in English. Sometimes we need that in quilting. We just need a place to let our eyes rest because there's so much going on. I don't want to miss a thing, but yet, where do I look? And this sort of is that kind of a block. Now, the beauty here, what really, really attracts me to this, number one, I'm using fabric that I have on hand, and I'm going to clear out a lot of it. This quilt is 144 5-inch squares. So that's a good number. That's about 3.5 charm packs, or, whatever you want to pull out of your stash, and whatever you maybe want to cut from your fat quarters. So complete flexibility, whatever you want. I chose 5-inch squares. This can be done in any size. 2.5 inch, 3, 6 inch, 8 inch, 9 inch, whatever you like. And that's going to work out according to what the fabric is you have on hand. I love quilting with what I already have, especially when I'm going scrappy. I want to pull everything together, all my favorites that I've recently put into a quilt, and put them all together. So what I did is decide to go with a 16 patch. That means I have 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down for a total of 16. And within each block, I wanted to have up to maybe 6 or 7 of the brightest focal fabrics, brightest, boldest, darkest color, whatever the case may be that you're using. And then the remaining probably 8 to 10 blocks would be the lighter, low volumes or kind of the mediums. So the mediums will fill in both areas, but I want to make sure there's a good balance between the lightest and the darks, and then the mediums work between. Placement is irrelevant. All that matters is that they get put together, and by spacing them out and putting them in a block like this, using a patchwork block, and sort of using your numbers and, what do I want to say, using not a percentage, but a ratio almost, where we have so much of this, this, and this. We make it work in one block, then we go to the next block. And that's exactly what I did. So with 3 piles of fabrics, I had them, I think, divided into blues and then pinks and purples and then some greens. And then I had the low volumes, and I divided them between, say, a white background, a beige background, or something particularly colorful. And from there, the mediums just sort of fit in between. And as I'm sewing, you can see that I chain stitch this. So the first thing I did is I sewed together a strip of 4. And I did this one. I haven't even pressed it yet, but I did 4 of these for one block, and I just chain stitched these all together, as you can see. And with my fabrics in a pile, I just went ahead and laid it out, and some have a lot of the low volume together, other have a lot of the colors together, but that's fine because the quilt is going to be really super interesting to look at, because you're going to have patches of color, patches of background where it's more subdued, and it works out wonderful. So even if what you do is you grab your 16 blocks, your squares that you're going to use, and just throw them in a pile and take one at a time and let it fall random. You don't have to be particularly conscientious of where each piece goes. What's more important is that you have a good ratio of everything that works together, because that's going to create the balance that we like so much in our quilts. I do have to tell you, it worked out nice that I had this in order to show you. Somehow in quilting all this, I ended up with an extra strip. You know how I always like to have extra pieces of fabric, extra squares along the way as I'm piecing, so when I get down to the end, I have a few extra to choose from. Well, I got overzealous, I added a strip, sewed it all together, and I said, wait, where are the rest of them? And realized I went too far. So this quilt is going to be 9 blocks altogether. So each one is a 16 patch, 4 by 4, and there's 9 of these. And so here we're getting into those nice breezy blue-green summer colors that I like, and seashells, of course, and just for fun, we have some daisies and get a shot of purple and green in here. So this is where I'm going, and I wanted to show you these individually before I put the quilt together, because this is going to be really fast. It's going to be 3 blocks by 3 blocks. So I'm going to have this finished in less than half an hour. Let me go ahead and take these blocks, put them together, and show you what we're going to finish at. This is such a great, easy quilt. You don't even need a pattern. You just need some squares. So get out your scrap bag, find out what you have in your pre-cuts, see where you have stashed some fabric or some fat quarters and find a common size that works for you that you can cut into some squares and just start sewing them together. Even if you make one block a day, in a week's time, you're going to have plenty to get started on a quilt, and that's really exciting. Okay, let me show you my quilt. I'll put it together and be right back. Here's the full layout of the quilt. You can see how all the colors are sporadically spread across the quilt top with the low volume in between as the background, and it looks really, really pretty. It's light, it's airy, it's cool looking, and that's kind of the breezy look that I was going for, and I really, really like how this turned out. Now, I'm excited to think about the next one because I think I might reverse the numbers. While I do like this, I think it would be fun to do another one with twice as many as those darker focal fabrics. And so instead of doing about 6 of the darks and 10, yeah, it would be 10 of the lights, reverse that and go 10 darks and 6 lights. Ooh, wouldn't that be pretty? So once we get this all figured out, I'll come up with a pattern, but for now, this is such an easy quilt. You really can do anything with it, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So I hope you've had fun and enjoy this and thinking about your own quilt that you can make. Thanks so much for following along. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and I do hope you subscribe and be sure to give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much. Have a great day.